can't cry. I am a guy. I shall not cry. I am a guy. I will not cry. I am a guy. How can I cry? I am a guy. Why will I cry? I am a guy. Me, cry, being a guy. Hi, my name is Shobhit and a very warm welcome to my showcase for the F.A.I.R project 2023, where I put forth a perspective. I am a guy. I won't cry. What is it that you think when you read this message? Well, I am a guy and I won't cry. Look around you. How often is that you find a male crying? Not many or not any, right? Why? Is that what you ask? Because we've never been taught to cry. Crying neither is nor ever will be a part of our syllabus of being a man. Why? Because we are meant to be. How will we be the men if we cried in front of anyone at all? Even if we do feel the remotest of the emotions triggering us, we will not cry. If we did, everyone will have things to say to us on how we are not the big boys, the big men, or the guys. Why is crying so often considered weak and womanly in our culture? Something a man, as a testament to his manliness, must avoid. Would have it been easier if as a child I wasn't told, oh, you are a boy and boys don't cry. Shush, boys don't cry. You'll never be the man of the house if you cry. How can you cry? You're such a strong boy. Phrases such as big boys don't cry, be a man are thrown at men, damaging their self-worth and belittling their self-image. We say the age is long gone, but traces are left of a bewildering toxic masculinity that negatively affects our youth. Boys shouldn't cry. Had crying been natural for men, or had men cried more often, would they be considered the weak male of the society? Well, I will make it a little easier for you. Let's break every important word in this phrase. Let's know the meaning of the word cry. Crying is a unique human expression of emotion that results in tears, facial contractions, and sometimes audible noises. Did you know that the ancient Egyptians believed that tears came from the heart, and that human beings first originated in the tears of the gods? Although complex in nature, crying is defined simply as sobbing or shedding of tears because of grief, sorrow, or pain. It is to weep. While manliness is a social construct that has remained surprisingly consistent throughout the history, the importance of this concept to physical, psychological, and social health and well-being is addressed from a holistic perspective. Darwin characterized crying as a basic human behavior signaling distress, vulnerability, and the need for assistance. He equated crying with the experience of tender feelings. Darwin recorded observations on the regional and cultural differences in frequency of crying, concluding that it was thought to be weak and unmanly by men, both of civilized and barbarous races, to exhibit bodily pain by any outward sign. The concept of manliness as it relates to the phenomena of crying is an unexplored territory. Traditionally, men were seen as being weak or unmanly in some way if they expressed themselves through crying. Hence, the terms such as man up were insults such as mama's boy. Although this view of masculinity is thankfully changing, it is still hard to shake off the entrenched culture values that we have all absorbed. In some ways, we may finally feel we are protecting boys from the judgments of others and preparing them from the so-called real world by telling them not to cry from a very young age. It has always been more socially acceptable for girls to cry, so we are more likely to comfort them rather than telling them to stop. But why not when it comes to the men or the boys or the guys? But answer me here, where is it written on our skin and bones that crying, showing emotion, is a strictly feminine concept? A study conducted over children aged from 9 to 13 about crying, catharsis, seeking support for feelings, and internalizing feelings, girls were reported a greater crying frequency and crying proneness, and more emotional and physical catharsis after crying. In addition, they more frequently sought support for feelings and more often experienced sadness and semantic complaints than boys. Seeking help for negative feelings and the experience of sadness and semantic complaints were positively associated with crying frequency and crying proneness. Emotional catharsis was positively linked to crying proneness. This study demonstrates that gender differences in crying frequency already existed in the middle childhood, and the findings suggest a linkage between these gender differences in crying and psychosocial factors. In order to obtain a better understanding of the precise nature of the differences in crying frequency, one needs to understand and know more about the differences in the exposure to emotional crying inducing situations, the difference in the appraisal of emotional stimuli, differences in maybe the biologically crying threshold, and the differences in the degrees to which one has control over one's tears, which again is probably due to the social learning. This thus suggests that both biological and psychosocial or cultural influences together may lay at the basis of gender difference in crying. There is a culturally normative ideal of male behavior with childhood and adolescence as crucial stages in identity development. A few facts which have been proven over several studies and researches done over the years say that lack of crying is associated with poor health outcomes. Headache, ulcers, hypertension, and insomnia were noted to be some of the potential consequences equated with the repression of inhibition of tears. Crying after suffering a loss prevents the development or distemper of a sickness. Sir Henry Maudsley, a British psychiatrist, credited the quote, "Sorrows which find no vent in tears may soon make other organs weep." Now you can imagine the impact of this. If I hold an alternative position wherein I state that it was boys and men who could cry as and when they felt the urge of crying, would it make you feel or make you think that our society would have given them, those males, the atrocious respect and inclusivity? Well, maybe, yes, because that would have been the normal, the adjusted normal, and the remarks around a man crying wouldn't be associated with him being weak or not being able to make through the tougher hurdles of life. But again, society doing what society does best, it would have created some sort of parity, would have given a sense of power to those who didn't cry. So a cycle again. A self-reflection on things said and done made me think about how the context in which crying occurs accounts for variability in its manifestations, meanings, and effects. People tend to cry alone or with another person who is perceived as emotionally supportive. While as a male child cries, the primitive aim of the parents should be to console their kid and tell them that it's okay to cry. But they end up imbibing a fear in them that how it's futile for a male child to cry. Consequently, children no longer unconditionally rely on their parents too, or anyone around them. If they seek that aid or express themselves to anyone around, he must be made fun of more commonly than unusual. This trait keeps with them as they go on to become the boys and the big men, and hence guys don't cry. Well, to conclude with, guys avoid sensation of crying, but it is majorly because of the profound expectations out of them set by the standards of the society. And emotional containment is what we say. Men avoid emotional conversations, men avoid all that which is as natural an emotion, or try to not to succumb to the judgments and failure that might be put adjacent to their name for being soft and emotional. We have to grow and make it as conducive an environment for it being normal for a child or a boy or a man to cry as it is for anyone else. Being supportive and letting the weep come to them naturally will aid them being open to attachments, trust, and being vulnerable, at least with the few, if not everyone yet. All animals cry, but none except people cry tears. No one knows why, but surely social signaling is among them. Tears are an honest and powerful signal of social concern. When someone cries, we instantly listen, comfort, and try to help. With tears, people inform, demand, plead, and often get what they seek. I do believe that it takes a forever for societal thought process to change, but not too long for our own thought process to change. While we are entering the age of inclusivity of all genders, social standards are reflective of the needs of every gender as well. Men too are becoming required to express themselves with words and tears. Let it be normal. Guys, you can cry. Now, I leave it to you. I am a guy and I can cry.